And we're live. It is Thursday, April 10th, 2025, the year of our Trump. It is 8 a.m. and like that, they're gone.
Oof.
The tariffs, they came, they saw, they conquered, and then they left. But they'll be back in 90 days unless there's a deal, in which case they won't. And they're permanent because they're going to be the way we raise revenue, and they're going to replace the income tax, but they're just a deal-making device, a negotiation leverage tactic. But they crash the stock market. But then the cool thing about that is if you take them away, then the stock market rebounds and you get to claim the biggest one-day rise since the last big one-day rise. And so the point is, they are everything to everybody. They are here, they're gone. They crash the stock market. They bring back the stock market. They cause prices to go up, but they also cause our hearts to go pitter-patter. I want to say I was sorry to see them go yesterday because I felt like, in my new Leninist mode, the longer we had tariffs, the more the contradictions were weighing on the system, and it might eventually collapse under the weight of them. And you take them away, and people get complacent, and things are like, oh well, maybe we're doing pretty well. It's kind of puttering along. The people who were complaining, like Holly, have Trump derangement syndrome. And to be fair, Holly is pretty deranged. And then you take them away, and all of a sudden, people forget that you're a fucking crazy person. And I kind of like when people remember the "but you're a fucking crazy person" thing, because I think that's a important component of our times, and we don't have long memories. And so I say, bring back the tariffs. We will inhale the pain. We will be liberated through it. It is through the suffering that we will be redeemed.
It's just like Jesus.
It's just like Jesus.
In fact, this whole thing is a metaphor for Jesus.
It's always a metaphor for Jesus. It is
Always.
through the blood that you will be saved. And remember, when you are, celebrating the resurrection, is it this weekend?
Next weekend.
Next weekend. When you're celebrating the resurrection next weekend, remember, without death, you cannot be resurrected. And so, people say death is an inevitable part of life. I will say death is an inevitable part of resurrection. Mm-hmm. And, without bringing this economy to its knees and squashing it like a bug under your boot, there is no redemption. So bring back the tariffs. Mr. Cactus, do you have anything to tell us this morning?
You're watching Doge TV, an effing revolution in morning television.
You are watching Dog Shirt TV, and it is an effing revolution in morning television. And one of the revolutionary features, and there are many, is that occasionally my new puppy decides to go in amongst the wires and just stand there, and this gives me anxiety because
it's like having a sociopath in the White House.
What if she decides to chew on the wires, which she sometimes does?
Yeah.
And another one of the there she goes. She's leaving the So another one of the revolutionary features, and that there are many, is that she is now tangled up in the wires, which is not what we want, because one of the wires that she's tangled up in is, in fact, the wire that is holding this camera in place. And
Man, this whole thing is also a metaphor for the Trump presidency.
Yes, exactly. And if she does not untangle herself, there's a very good chance she's going to unplug the wire. And she almost just knocked down the. Oh wait, she may have freed herself. Nope, she's got legs caught in the thing. Let me free her. Can you talk for a moment, Holly?
Always.
Finish the monologue.
Yeah. The other thing of note that you can do when you know that you've crashed the market and then you know, like, oh, I can resurrect it again, especially if I go on Twitter and tell everyone to buy stocks because it's a good time to buy stocks, then you can probably make a lot of money if you know exactly what the markets are going to do. And more importantly, what you, a deranged sociopath, is going to do. Although I'm not convinced that he actually knows what he is going to do from moment to moment. So I'm not sure that he has foreknowledge of his own actions. But nonetheless, some serious market manipulation that's probably taken place. I have an Australian friend who texted me and said that according to the ethics of her company, if she had, she won't even tell her husband when her company is acquiring a new business because it could affect our share value, and I could be in prison for insider trading. But how can Trump tell Twitter to buy stock today and then he changes tariff deadlines? How do rich people get to break the law so publicly to the whole world and nothing happens? This is an excellent question from an Australian, a fortunate soul who still lives in a stable democracy.
Yeah. So I think the answer to that is the law is for suckers. And I say that as a legal writer. But, legal compliance is for nincompoops. And if you flout it loudly enough and dramatically enough, you get away with it because it's called, being authentic. And, all that is a long-winded, 8-minute long-winded with a puppy tangled up in wires and having to pause to give the floor to Holly.
That gets high points.
We are not allowed to have fun anymore. But we are allowed to have Anna Bauer, who is going to join us shortly to discuss litigation, Taylor Swift.
I hope
who is the administrator of Doge. And I have a really important widowed fact for Anna Bauer that is going to amuse her, but I'm not going to say it until until she's here because it will amuse her. And so I'm going to hold on to that. We're going to talk about her little scoop yesterday. Anna had a scoop, and we're going to talk about a million other things. But Anna never shows up anywhere on time. And she did tell me that she was going to be not show up until 8:10 or 8:15, which in Anna speak probably means more like 8:20 or 8:25. So in the meantime, Holly, what kind of feedback? Do you want to hear what kind of feedback I got on my bad hair day?
Sure.
So everybody who responded pointed out that my hair wasn't in the pictures, and they seemed
Are they sure about that?
They seemed to not. They seemed to not understand that was the joke.
I mean,
there are a lot of earnest people out there, and they're like, that picture's not of you.
The hair was so disastrous, it could have been of you.
I mean, I just want to say,
no.
Right. But, I want you all to appreciate this. There aren't a lot of co-hosts who will, 1 minute before the show say, oh, I'm having a bad hair day, and start putting her hair back. And I say, that's the subject of the monologue, is going to be my bad hair day. And sua sponte, which for those of you who don't know means on the court's own motion, she decides she's going to visualize with her hair what I am talking about my hair. And that was completely improvisational on her part. And to humiliate yourself that cheerfully um, on, on the court's own motion.
That's
Uh,
basically my only talent, so I have to use it.
I mean, you really outdid yourself. That was great.
Well,
It
yeah.
almost made me want to grow my hair back to so that I could do things like that.
So I have been intentionally humiliating myself as a defensive mechanism to deflect from my own uncoolness and mediocrity since 1985 or 6.
And what's the first time you self-consciously remember being like, okay, I am going to be the class clown
Hmm.
because I'm not cool enough to get attention by, because otherwise people are going to make fun of me if I don't make fun of myself.
Let's see. I don't know that it was a conscious strategy ever
Well, it
in
is now.
well, it is now, right? But I think it was not that conscious. Nothing I did was that well thought out until around age 27, I would say.
Okay, so what happened at age 27 when you were like, I'm running with this? Because I remember, I would slight
I'll tell
diversion,
you what happened.
slight.
Because I met this guy named Kevin Fletcher, who was way out of my league. I mean, he looked like a movie star. He has a PhD,
He does look like a movie star,
doesn't he?
and
He's
he has a PhD in
from Harvard.
economics, and yeah, I
Harvard.
mean,
I mean, and he's nice. We have mutual friends, and so I knew ahead of time how kind and amazing he was. I was told he had an incredibly dry sense of humor, and
although he
anyway,
doesn't speak very much,
well,
so
that's because I'm there.
right. I mean, it is can be hard to notice the dry sense of humor because you have the denominator of total words spoken is pretty small.
Yeah, he's really funny. I'm telling you, when you get him going, like he is really, really funny. But anyway, so I of course I immediately was like, I must be with this person, and yet totally out of my league, like way, way out of my league. And so but he seemed to enjoy my humor. And so that's when it was like, aha, this has been my superpower the whole time is being ridiculous, being totally ridiculous. He was highly amused, and I guess he was amused enough
To
to
spend the rest of his life with you. Yeah,
that's right.
it
And
is
now he
shocking.
regrets it every day. He just got back from 2 weeks in Austria, and I'm just glad he came back, you know?
Well,
So,
you're not alone in this realization because I saw a documentary once about Steve Martin's early stand up career, which, for those of you who've never, I mean, this is some of the best stand up comedy that has ever been done.
oh, I
And
saw that documentary.
and
Very
he
good.
he did it with hello Jonathan Rausch, and he did this he wrote a wonderful memoir about his career as a stand-up
Read
comedian,
that too.
which is actually not funny. It's
Really
just
not.
a very thoughtful memoir about stand-up comedy and about that period of his life. But in the documentary, he's describing how he created this persona, which, for those of you who are of a certain age, you will remember is the arrow through the head, King Tut, goofball, who takes himself very seriously, but is also silly. And what he said is it's the 70s and all the comedians are really angry and it's the post Vietnam Watergate era. And they're all trying to be Lenny Bruce and they're all really mad and sardonic. And I said to myself, this moment is going to pass and I'm going to be right there. I'm going to be silly.
Wow, that is strategic.
And I think that is basically what Holly did starting when she was, in
To be clear, I
fifth
was
grade or
ridiculous
something.
well before that. But I was ridiculous from around
You said
ninth.
85, right?
Yeah, well, I would say actually I'm going to revise that. It was more like 88 because I spent my first couple years in boarding school being like terrified and being bullied and being like smarty pants, and that was all a mistake. And so then at some point I realized like it's way better to just be ridiculous
Yeah. No,
and also to become a bully, which I did that. I told you about my brilliant prank. That I mean,
Jonathan, were you ever a bully or were you just bullied?
I was mainly just bullied, although not severely, but a transformative moment in my life, one of the few I remember distinctly from second grade, was when Robert Marshall was a new kid and he was even more reticent than I was. And so I decided to bully him. And I remember sitting on top of him on the playground, not in a way that could hurt him. I was very small, I couldn't hurt anyone. But he was submitting to me, and I remember at that moment thinking, this is not who I want to be. And I never did that again. And he and I,
Wow.
by the way, are still friends.
aw, that's such a sweet story. I love that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wasn't a very bad bully, just to be clear. But that was, I
Uh,
mean, you have to admit that was a stroke of genius. I put baby oil in my roommate's shampoo, and it was an opaque bottle, and I would shake it up every now and then so it didn't separate. And she just couldn't figure out why her hair was so greasy, and she just kept washing it. Anyway, it's not funny.
Yes,
It's not funny. It's not
except
funny.
it is funny. That's the thing about bullying practical jokes is they can
I don't
actually
think
be
she ever
fun.
figured it out. The
Well, I
term,
think we should have her on the show to tell her to
I'm not really in touch with her.
confess.
Yeah,
We
the other thing we did was we had a lot of there we had no entertainment. Our school was out in the middle of nowhere and obviously pre-internet, but there was no television. There was literally nothing to do except bully people and hang out and be silly.
right.
And so my roommate, we had four of us in a room, and my main roommate, who's still my best friend to this day, she also was complicit in this. But one day we decided they had this music. It was the era of the cassette tape, and they had music that we did not enjoy, including this horrible tape. She was the child of doctors, and she had this tape of the singing doctors. It was all parodies, medical, like really corny medical parodies, like pacemaker, pacemaker, give me a beat, keep me alive, up on my feet, that kind of thing. And so we decided we had to get rid of those tapes, but I guess we wanted to be creative. So we sewed them into the curtains.
That's effective.
Yes! We like sewed them into the curtains, which of course they discovered because the curtains had a weird weight to them.
Right. Not to mention, uh, cassette tape shaped bulges
Well, they
in
were
them.
thick curtains and they had like multiple kind of layers or whatever. So I think it was more just the you could hear the tapes rattle.
So, Jonathan, before Anna Bauer shows up, what's on your mind this morning?
well, I'm here to see what's on your mind and take your temperature on the state of things. Um, as much emotional temperature as factual temperature. Is that black
It
hole under your arm the puppy?
That is the puppy.
Wow.
She is so monochromatic, except for her few white streaks, that you can't really pick her up on a camera.
Yeah, there's a movie about aliens who are so black and absorb dark so completely that you actually can't see them as anything other than black blobs, which
Right.
saves the movie makers a ton in special effects money.
Well, this is kind of like that. Only only she is bent on mayhem, and if you had been here earlier in the show, you would have seen her all tangled up in the wires associated with my little studio here, and really creating havoc wherever she goes. And I have to say, I don't mind at all, because every little bit of havoc she creates is a uh, distraction from the situation and is more pleasant than the situation. And so, you know,
Yes, it's a less maligned form of havoc. Uh,
correct.
well, I do have something I'd ask you guys about that I'm thinking about a little bit, which is the non-substantive side of the opposition to Trump, and specifically, how much is accomplished by marches and by 25-hour floor speeches and by other morale-raising exercises, which arguably really don't accomplish anything, but maybe accomplish a lot. So that's a question I have, but you don't
I
need
wrote a
to
whole
devote
essay
the
about
show
that.
for it.
Yeah, so Holly, talk about your essay and give your answer to this question, and then I will give mine.
You had another point, though. I interrupted you, Jonathan.
Oh no, I asked because I was at lunch with a friend who at least Ben knows who is deriding this sort of thing as just silly and beside the point.
Yeah, so I have strong feelings about such folks. I so I wrote a whole essay about it. Anyway, I feel like at this point, especially because this is like grassroots stuff, like what don't crap on people's attempts to just try something, just try anything. Because nobody knows what's going to break through. Nobody knows the answer. And by the way, that's always true, like the Tunisian street vendor who set himself on fire in
Don't set
2019.
yourself on fire,
Don't
Holly.
do that. Don't. That was a not. But did he know? I mean, he did that probably out of just sheer desperation and anger and frustration. Um, and did he know when he did that he was going to basically start an entire like movement across the entire Middle East? Probably not. And I have to say, as being a political analyst too, like it's so unpredictable, like what breaks through, what moves people, what kind of breaks the dam, that I say just let people go out there and try things. Don't be, I called it like in praise of cringe, like let people care enough to go and do something. The cool kids, which of course I've never been, as we've just been talking about, who like stay on the sideline, like, eh, well, that's dumb. Like that's never gonna work. I'm like, if you're so smart and you know how to fix this, why don't you come up with something? Because we're 10 years in and you haven't fixed anything. And you need to shut all the way up, is how I feel about it. Let the cringe people go out there and care. And this essay also included Taylor Swift, Anna Bauer,
Oh,
as
I am sorry
in
that I
praise.
missed it.
Well, I told Ben to send it to you, but apparently he did not.
I
Oh,
did,
wait.
actually.
Oh,
You
I totally
not.
missed it. I'm sorry.
Right. So I mean, I agree that people smarter than me and people with a better pay grade or whatever, people with more influence than me, need to have some strategizing and the Democrats clearly need like some strategy or whatever. But in the meantime, clearly nobody has that. And so why are we spending time crapping on people's attempts to just do something? Energy
Well,
is good. Caring is good.
the answer to that this very smart person gave is that what we learned in the first Trump term is that self-righteous sounding opposition from so-called resistance is counterproductive. It
I
Yeah,
don't
just
think we learned
convinces the
that at
public
all.
that
I don't think we know that. I don't think we know that.
I think we learned, the self-righteous sounding opposition, which, some of the tone of which I didn't like then and like not thrilled by now, was part of the mobilization that led to the 2018 midterms, and that proved very important in terms of holding Trump accountable. And I'm not saying people should adopt slogans that I don't like. In fact, I think nobody should adopt any slogans that I don't like. But uh, I want to say a word as somebody who spends time shining lights on the Russian embassy and on the Washington Monument. I want to say a word in defense of fruitless protests that don't do anything. Um, uh, you know, if you always asked yourself, what is the constructive straight line effect between this action I am taking and some desired result, you would paralyze yourself because they hold all the reins of power, the bad guys here, and for Democrats and traditional conservatives, which is to say the world of small L liberals, you don't actually have any power except the power to speak and the power to articulate a vision of the good. And some people are going to do that by writing Atlantic essays, and some people are going to be doing that by writing lawfare essays, and some people are going to be doing that by holding signs in front of, in very, notionally ineffective ways. And by the way, I don't think the writing Atlantic essays and writing lawfare essays is all that effective either. If you're asking, like, how do you actually have an effect, right? If you're trying to be, and I think asking about the effect of things is often just giving yourself permission to not do anything. What's the effect of a political contribution? Is it
What's
really
the effect of an entire life? That's how we live our lives. We follow our joy, our passions, our gifts. We don't know what it's all going to mean. Like
right?
if you're like, oh, well, I need to live this like impactful. No, we all just go out there and live our lives, and we all end up affecting everyone around us and spreading joy and love, and it becomes a contagion and a stream, and we all live by faith, whether we have faith or not. That's how we all live our lives, and that's what we should do in this moment there.
And I will just say one other thing, which is, if you are trying to have an effect on the midterm elections, mobilizing people is the most important thing you can do. People who are going to turn out for a march are the most likely to get involved in campaign organizing. They are the most likely to go door to door. They're the most likely to be persuadable to run for office. So you're 2 years out of your first real opportunity to do anything that's not litigation. We're going to turn to litigation in a moment. And what else would you have them do? So that's my view. I want to turn to Anna Bauer because I have hilarious Witoad gossip for Anna Bauer.
Oh, amazing. I'm all ears.
So guess what Siri has decided to autocorrect Witoad to on my phone?
I have no idea. Doge?
What is the first 3 letters of Witoad? Yes. I cannot type. It changes. And I think that may be a secret a
clue. It's a clue.
As to who
is the administrator of Doge.
Yeah.
So it's a witness. Is it you?
I mean, that's what Siri thinks.
But that was our theory wasn't that our theory? One of the theories the whole time?
Well, I think one of Ben's theories is that I am the administrator of Doge.
I think the whole Witoad thing is just Anna, like, it's like, she's creating it's like Robert Hansen being the head of counterintelligence, right? It's just all an effort to, to draw attention away from herself.
Well, I missed the joke. What's Witoad? Is that like Kofifi?
No, Witoad stands for who is the administrator of Doge, and it is Anna's personal crusade that she has been on for almost 3 months now to try to figure out and to try to get the courts adequately interested in the question of who the administrator of Doge is and whether that person, whoever it may be, exercises Article 2 power and thus needs to be appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate.
Well, Ben, I don't know if you heard the news this week. We kind of already knew this because it was in court filings, but there was some reporting from the San Francisco Chronicle about some messages that Amy Gleason,
The
the
notional administrator.
notional administrator of Doge, the formal administrator of the US Doge service, sent to a group chat. And in these messages, she's defending herself because as I understand it, I think people were being quite critical of Doge's actions in the healthcare community and regarding healthcare cuts. And Amy Gleason, of course, has a background in that area. And she's also been detailed over to HHS. But so in these messages, she's defending herself and Doge and breaks down the structure, saying, well, there's USDS, the United States Digital Service, formerly, that then became the United States Doge Service under the executive order.
It's so clever the way they just repurposed that D and the acronym stayed the same.
And then she said, and she's like, and I'm the administrator of the USDS. And then she said, that's totally separate from the Doge teams that are hired directly into the agencies. Because of course, that's kind of what they've been doing to get around some of the, or I suspect that's what they've been doing to get around some of the Privacy Act issues, with detailing people and FOIA issues with detailing people from USDS to agencies. Instead, they directly hire them. So they have these Doge teams. And then she says, and that's also totally separate, those two things, the Doge teams and USDS, that's separate from the broader Doge policy agenda that Elon Musk is advising Trump on. So we're now calling it the Doge Trinity. It is Doge is one, and yet it is also three.
I think that's exactly the right way to think about it. That it's really the Doge is kind of a constellation of authorities, right? It's well, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit,
and the Holy Doge.
The Holy, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk litigation, because we've got Anna. What's your favorite hearing that you've attended recently?
Oh gosh. What? I'm sorry, Ben. I'm blanking a little bit on the litigation because I spent the entire day yesterday not working on, kind of litigation adjacent, but I was working on writing a piece.
Let's talk about that. You broke some news yesterday.
Yeah, it was a little scoop.
A little scooplet about compliance with certain court orders. It turns out that the Energy Department is not scrupulously following the temporary restraining order against retaliating against Jenner and Block, right?
Yeah,
and Wilmer.
So there's three law firms, Perkins Coie, Wilmer Hale, and Jenner and Block, who have been targeted by some of these retaliatory executive orders. And one of the provisions in those orders included a requirement that government contractors oh wait, did I disappear?
No, you're there.
No, I accidentally made myself disappear. These executive orders all included an identical provision under Section 3 that required the government to request government contractors to disclose any dealings that they might have with any of these firms. And then there's also, a procedure for reviewing and potentially terminating any contracts with government contractors that do have dealings with these firms. And sorry, someone is vacuuming, which is really unfortunate.
No, it's all right. We're pro vacuum cleaners
and so but these judges all entered TROs about these barring these executive orders going into effect. Ben, I'm going to go ask if this vacuuming can
No,
be
leave
put
it.
on pause. Oh,
It's
okay.
fine.
Sorry.
I think the vacuuming is awesome,
Okay,
and
great. Okay,
it's the
so,
closest I'm going to get to cleaning today. So
oh, okay. You know, in the Wittes household,
we
what's the
clean.
phrase? We clean for no
All are
one.
welcome. We clean for no man or woman.
Um, but so anyway, these orders were blocked in large part by three separate judges. One of the judges, Judge Bates, in his order blocking many provisions in the order that targeted Jenner and Block, specifically said words to the effect of, you know, the administration shall immediately cease sending any of these requests for disclosures to government contracts regarding the contractor's business dealings with these law firms. So that was on March 28th. A little over a week later, on April 7th, the Department of Energy sends out to designated employees who deal with contractors a notification requesting that employees speak with their contractors that they're assigned to and ask them to disclose their business dealings with Perkins Coie, Covington and Burling, Jenner and Block, and Wilmer Hale. And then they also, you know, mention and any law firms in Washington, D.C. And so this clearly seems to be a violation of at least Judge Bates's order, if not some of these other orders. 2 days later, yesterday in the afternoon, this directive was then rescinded, and they cited the pending litigation. So someone at some point realized that this was an issue.
And was that in response to any inquiries by you, or
Not that I'm aware of. This was something that I was still working on the story when I learned that it had been rescinded. What I will say though, so what we know from the public filings in the Jenner and Block case, I believe it was on Tuesday, they filed their motion for summary judgment, and in one of the footnotes they mentioned that in the Jenner and Block case, the government was supposed to immediately send out a notice to all the departments telling them that this order exists and that they, you know, are supposed to comply with the order. But in the footnote, they say something to the effect of, we've been trying to see, you know, whether the government has sent this notice. We've been trying to confer with them on it several times. It seems to be the case that the notice maybe wasn't sent out until, you know, Tuesday, perhaps, or Monday.
And in fact, a counter notice was sent out.
Yes,
right?
and that's the thing. The notice actually says in it, if you've read the notice, there was a similar one sent previously, but this one about Jenner and Block was from Pam Bondi, and it basically said, we're required to send you this notice, and then there's like one little line at the end that says, however, it continues to be the executive's position that these executive orders are lawful, and we will take all actions necessary to combat the lawfare. There's a lawfare mention to combat the lawfare perpetrated by these firms. They did say all legal and necessary steps. So maybe what their argument is going to be that they weren't completely suggesting that the orders be flouted because they said they included the term all legal steps. And that would include compliance with the orders, maybe. I don't know. There's kind of a plausible deniability there, but it certainly seemed to have an overall vibe of, you should do whatever you want to, you know, retaliate or punish these firms.
So I have a question so the government continues to issue these orders about more firms, about individuals. Miles Taylor yesterday, who wrote that anonymous op-ed during the first Trump administration, Chris Krebs, a couple of cybersecurity firms, and they keep issuing these retaliatory EOs despite court orders that say including from Trevor McFadden. So I guess that was the AP thing, but it's kind of the same, right? You won't do what we want, therefore. And so my question is, what are they waiting for before they stop? Is it looking for a higher legal authority of the DC Circuit, or I don't think the Supreme Court is likely to hear this issue? What do you think the mechanism is by which this? At what point is do unenforceable orders simply become government press releases?
Well, I mean, I think that's part of the point. And there even, I don't recall which firm it was made this argument. Maybe it was around some of the reporting regarding Paul Weiss and the deal that Paul Weiss made to get that order that was targeted at them rescinded. But they're part of the argument that was made around firms that have been making deals is like, even if these orders are ultimately found to be unenforceable, the point of them is this public pronouncement that you are, the odd man out, that you are not going to be, that your firm doesn't have the relationship that is needed with the government to be able to, adequately represent someone and get stuff done, whether that's a merger and acquisition, whether that's, a deal in a white collar criminal trial, like whatever. The idea is just that, it kind of doesn't matter if legally these orders are unenforceable. It's the pronouncement by the president that we don't like these firms, we're not going to do business with them, that is itself damaging.
Yeah, although there's something, I mean, it's also damaging to be, Skadden Arps, the big bad, the biggest, baddest law firm on, Wall Street, or on, lobbyists and, the meanest motherfucking litigators who cave like that. Right, that doesn't send a great message to your clients. And by the way, what about the firms that turn out to be so unimportant that they don't get an order at all? If you've been good enough and kept your head down, and you're a 1,000-lawyer firm, and the president doesn't care enough about you because none of your work has been important enough to generate one of these orders, what does that say about you? And so I'm not sure, like, what's the worst business development
I think
option
the
here?
latter. Well, but I think the latter thing is one reason why we saw so many small and mid-sized firms signing on to the amicus brief for law firms, because they have less skin into the game, in the sense that they're less likely to be targeted because they are smaller. It seems like he really has this thing against specifically big law, the big corporate firms.
So do I, actually.
Well, a lot of people do. Yeah, I mean,
I kind of agree with him. Like, if you're gonna go after these firms, are like the worst places to work in the world. And one reason, by the way, that Anna Bauer is at Lawfare is that she didn't go to one of these big firms.
But I also was not going to go to one of these big firms anyway, Ben. Like, I was going to be a public defender.
But that's why you were available.
Yeah.
Because you weren't. See you later, Jonathan.
Have to go. Nice to see you all.
Good to see you. So, all right. So here's my question. When is it going to get boring?
It's not. Right. I think it's going to get so what we saw, I think that the really concerning turn yesterday is, and we've seen this a little bit in that a lot of the law firm orders mentioned individual people, Andrew Weissman, like people related to the Mueller investigation, that kind
Are
of
you
stuff.
insulted that there's been no order about us?
Yeah, why
I mean,
hasn't
they
there
keep
been a lawfare specific, or there has
they
been a
keep
lawfare specific order, little L, but there hasn't been
I
a
know, but they keep
capital L.
they borrow our name. They use it like, and then they don't even issue an order about us.
Rude.
Rude.
Yeah.
I think like it's fine with me if they want to call all this stuff lawfare and, use our name, but at least give us an executive order so we can raise some money off of it. Come on. I mean, there are rules here, and
Yeah, I mean, look, and like also,
Why don't you sue them? You should sue them for name infringement or whatever.
yeah, sort of. We can't really claim an intellectual property right in the word lawfare since we didn't invent it.
Okay, but what if they accidentally capitalize it one time?
he does that.
In a
He
file?
always, it's his thing. He capitalizes it, and it drives me even more crazy that they've like not only used this term all the time in a way that it shouldn't be used, but well, arguably shouldn't be used, but then also they capitalize it, so it looks like they're talking about capital L
I love it
lawfare.
that he's using the term lawfare because he uses it and then people Google it and they end up on lawfare, and I think it's great, and I'm not fighting with him about the use of the word. I just feel like if we're important enough to steal our name, we have done so much more than Wilkie, Farr, and Gallagher to make Trump's life difficult. And that's Wilkie Farr has some great people and stuff, and I'm not snotting on Wilkie Farr, but he hasn't tweeted hundreds of times using the name Wilkie Farr. I just feel like he owes us on this one.
Well, maybe so this is what I was going to say is that the turn yesterday that we saw is we've seen these orders that are more focused on, law firms. It will mention specific individuals. We have seen individuals listed on some of these security clearance orders where he's
Right.
got his list of 50 people that he hates, that he doesn't want to have security clearance, even if they don't have security clearance.
I don't have a security clearance, so I want an executive order taking it away.
I don't anymore, by the way.
Yeah.
Like most people, you leave and you don't have, that's it.
Right.
Someone's security clearance he's revoked like 3 times, and it's like, how many times can you revoke this guy's security clearance?
Yeah, so I just think I think like I feel about this the way I felt about Putin not putting me on the sanctions list, which is
Yeah.
we've earned this, and I like
Although Robin
like if you
Lewis
would
got put on the sanctions list before you got put on the sanctions list, and so
Yeah,
I feel
and I
like
had-
if
and I had
past,
serious FOMO.
I know, and if past, if the history repeats itself, that means that like me or Quinta or like Molly Reynolds are going to be put on the
Anybody from
executive.
lawfare
We're
is
going to
fine.
get our own executive orders
I
before
want
you
an
do.
executive order directed at lawfare. I'm not picky about whether it mentions my name. I'm not vain that way. But it can be all about Anna, or it can be all about Roger Parloff. It can be you can make it about whoever you want, but I also want it to refer specifically to the risks posed by lawfare, which is the language of the Perkins Coie thing. I just think we've earned it, and like, what do I have to do?
Well, I don't. Okay. Well, again, getting to my point, which is going from the law firms to yesterday, there were executive orders that were specifically targeted at Miles Taylor and Chris Krebs. I don't know if you guys talked about that before I got here, but it seems to me that we're going into a direction which is like really, I mean, the Chris Krebs thing is really disturbing, and like, I mean, all of the targeting orders are very disturbing, but it really seems like we're going in a direction in which we're going to see more and more of these orders that target individuals as opposed to, the law firms where he's trying to coerce them into a deal. This is more,
Don't mind me. The dog just unplugged my
I was wondering
my
what was going
camera.
on.
You have a weird like symbol.
Yeah, there's a weird
that
symbol.
looks like some sort of Star Wars resistance icon. I don't know what it is. Anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Holly, what did you make of those orders that came out yesterday? And, do you agree that you think that we're just going to see more and more as we did? Like, this is kind of the start of that as opposed to a one-off.
I mean, I mean, it's very disturbing. I just don't, at a certain point, like you have to, if they're going to bring, certainly if they're going to bring legal cases, like they have to have some sort of substance to them. So I'm wondering like what they're going to, what are they accusing them of? They're going to have to come up with some kind of substance. I guess they can do that, but
Yeah, and I think too, though, it's kind of like, like even the fact of investigating someone if
true.
for a baseless reason is causes all kinds of collateral consequences for that person
Absolutely.
with,
Sure.
legal fees and reputational issues and, career prospect, all of that kind of stuff is itself a punishment, even if they know that they ultimately, don't have anything to back it up.
I mean, Chris Krebs, it's a bit like, I think if you're Miles Taylor and you've kind of made your last few years of career out of being an anti-Trump conservative, it's probably not very harmful. But if you're Chris Krebs and you're principally famous in the public for having taken the stand that he took during the election, but that's not the way he markets himself, right? The way he markets himself is as a cybersecurity specialist and somebody who has expertise in a subject matter. It's very damaging. John Hawkinson, welcome.
Hi. Well, I just popped up while you were out, and I wanted to suggest to Anna that maybe every time we get one of these orders, it diminishes the power of the others.
I mean, that might be right do you mean like in terms of the public kind of the communicative, value of it being a punishment just reputationally and that kind of thing? Or
Well, yes, but also that it shows they're picking off law firms and that everyone who capitulates will lead to more capitulation or lack thereof if they resist. I have an echo, so I'm going to restart.
No, I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Ben, what do you make of that?
So I didn't hear all of it, but I take it the question is, does this diminish the power of the order to do it this profligately? Look, I think the answer to that question is going to be determined by how much money people lose as a result of these orders. If it is in fact career ruining or firm ruining or really substantially diminishes your profits per partner as a law firm, it's going to be effective. If, on the other hand, it becomes what we were pretending, which is a mark of honor and importance, and people market themselves off of it. And if Wilmer Cutler, Wilmer Hale, and Jenner and Block are able to, kick ass on the theory, hey, we fought for ourselves, we'll fight for you. Why would you do business with firms who won't even fight for themselves? They're going to fold for you too. Then I think it ends up, backfiring and becoming uh, and yeah, you can overplay it and give people a marketing tool. Now, Trump might not care about that because some things are mutually advantageous, and there is a symbiotic relationship between Trump and the resistance people, right? Sometimes that you know you they hate each other, but they need each other, kind of like Bibi Netanyahu and Hamas. And so I think we won't really know the answer to that question until you see how it plays out over time.
Also,
Well, for
can I
sure
just, oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
for sure that's true, Ben. The other aspect is the escalating magnitude of the bribes, or however the compensation, seems to also suggest that this can't go on in the way that it's going. We'd be getting into the billions, and that just seems implausible. And so I don't know. It seems like it has a limited lifetime. This strategy. I'm not sure.
I
I mean,
agree with that. I also don't know that the terms of any settlement are enforceable.
I mean, I also think too, another thing that is not exactly helping the bargaining power of on that part of the White House is that they keep going out there and completely like, embarrassing and humiliating these law firms who have made deals by saying things that, like literally the White House press secretary used the term bend the knee when talking about these deals. Trump went and did a public speech in which he said, oh, they're coming to me saying, sir, like, let us give you millions of dollars, stuff like that. And I think that the more firms that haven't made deals that see that, they're going to be thinking to themselves, maybe it's not worth it to then be humiliated by the White House and basically have the perception be that we're completely in their pocket and can't take adverse positions to the administration when we need to. The other thing I will just say before we end is the showers executive order. I was not paying attention the entire day because I was working on this other story. And I then, come back online to check the news and see
Did you watch the video, Anna?
I watched the video and I just want to say, what is going on with this? Like, what? Like,
The video felt like a parody of themselves. I could not understand
I
it.
think it's a long-held obsession with him. And I have to say, like, I'm not a handy person at all. And even I know how you just easily open up the shower head, remove the little regulator.
No, Holly, they're welded in.
Are they welded
Yeah,
in?
that's what he
I don't
said.
think so.
That's
I've
what Trump
removed
said in the video.
I've removed them before. I mean, this is not going to make me look very environmentally conscious, but that's pretty much the first thing I do when I get a shower head is I open it up and remove that thing. Because I too like very good water pressure. I like I like a real, tsunami. So to quote the White Lotus lady, tsunami. And I'm not a handy person. It's very easy to do. So
All right, we got to wrap up, but I would disappoint Holly if I didn't allow her one Taylor
we have
Swift.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Anna Bauer, Holly, Taylor Swift, go.
Anna, what's your favorite song, or what's your favorite era?
oh my gosh, what? Oh, it's got to be Reputation.
Okay, that's all the cool people like the Reputation.
And also that was when Taylor was like everyone hated her. And my sisters and I were like, we're still gonna go to the concert. We're still gonna like be just like shameless Taylor fans. And it in retrospect I still can't believe that I got like pit tickets to that concert for like $150 or something. And then now it's like you have to pay an insane amount for going to a Taylor concert. But what about you? What's your era?
Well, I was a Taylor skeptic, but I have a teenage daughter, and so she converted me to Swiftie dumb. And my breakthrough was that she told me I had to listen to the whole Folklore album.
Oh, it's so good.
And so I did that, and I was converted.
And
it was like
that album was like a gift because it was during COVID, and it was like everyone just needed a Taylor Swift album, and it was perfect.
Well, I read somewhere that she made that album for like middle-aged moms, and and successful. Like mission accomplished, Taylor. Got us with the folklore.
John, what about you? Are you raising your hand for a
No, I'm just the Red album.
oh, the red? I was like,
Also, I just want to say, Ben, the logo of your camera looks like the sort of Ben Wittes bat signal that should be laser projected on the clouds of the Capitol.
Well, I don't want to antagonize the
wait,
Capitol
Ben, what's
Police.
your era?
He doesn't even know
I-
anything.
But why? Because you've been listening because you asked us the other day.
I have, but I'm not going to answer this question.
Okay.
I rather am going to wrap up the show because it's 9:00. You are all great Americans, and the puppy has really been chewing on wires, and I'm hoping it hasn't swallowed any. And I'm going to have to figure out a new arrangement for the puppy during the show because
Try a water gun. It works for me.
Ben,
Get
you
one
need
of
some
those
better
little
cable
like
management.
fence things, the
You need some
indoor.
of that plastic wire loom, the plastic slit inner tubes that you slide the wires into. You neaten them up. They can't be chewed as easily. It's a great solution for everything.
all right, we're going to do all of those things. We're going to be back tomorrow. Minna Olander is going to join us from, though she is Finnish, from Sweden, just to confuse everybody. And we're going to it's going to be a blast. Keep the faith. I still need a better sign off. We're going to, we'll be back tomorrow. Ciao.